There is no one greater than Jesus Christ of Nazareth ever to exist on the face of this planet. I belong to that Jesus. I fear no one, and I fear nothing. Understand?
Alright, we're going old school today. Haven't done this in a while. Hello, new people. There's always new people when I do any video about Tim. Jordan and Candace, I imagine, are going to probably pull people too. If you've somehow stumbled your way here, what an interesting day this is going to be for you. Alright. Ultimately, if your comment is going to be, you're wrong because I said so, you're dumb or gay, or gay, because that's insulting, and nobody likes you, because that's true. I've heard it all before. I already know. Don't bother unless you just want to be farmed for content, because that's what I do with you guys every time. So welcome. For those of you who are going to tell me that I'm wrong on some point that I'm going to make in this video, save it. You're wrong. You're wrong. Because my only points that I'm really going to make in this video is that Tim is goofy as fuck and a narcissist. And I believe that that is academic. And every point I'm going to make on everything else, I also believe is academic. So, you're wrong. But welcome anyways. As for everybody else, some of you are going to get this, right? Some of you are going to get the joke. Some of you are going to find this hysterical. And to you, I say, welcome to the EgoCast. I'm sure you're going to really enjoy my channel. There's many, many, many of you who are probably not, however, going to get this. And you're not going to understand, and you're just going to kind of be like, well, whatever, that's a thing. And you're welcome to if you would like to stay. Maybe someday you will begin to get it. I don't know. But we'll see what happens. But the most of you will just be like, I don't know, probably have already clicked off. But anyways, we're talking about Tim, talking about Jordan, talking about Candace. It's been a while since I've done one of these. I really miss doing this kind of shit. So here we go. This video, just to set this up, right? I'm a comedian. I never say that I'm doing the fucking news here. In fact, I always tell people, don't trust what I say. Use it to go and look up for yourself. See if I'm right, see if I'm wrong, and whatever you want to do, right? I'm just throwing out information and trying to have a good time. That's all I want to do. I just want to kick it and enjoy myself and have some fun. Tim, however, tries to portray himself as this straight of the fucking road newsman, and it makes me laugh sometimes whenever Tim does this shit. And this video is it's perfect. It perfectly shows you everything that's wrong with Tim. It's just everything that's wrong with Tim. It's just but it's perfect, man. And it's exactly why I don't really watch Tim anymore. Like, I look at what Tim titles his videos, and then if it interests me, I look at more reliable sources. Or I'll listen to him, I'll skip his little intro, I'll listen to him read the actual part, first part of the story, I'll skip him talking about himself, and then I'll watch him read the rest of the story, and then I'll just turn it off and go to the next video. Like, I really... Tim is at his best when he's not talking about himself, and that's not most of his videos. And this is it's beautiful. It even starts with a meme. He starts it with a meme for us. Here we go.
How do you identify the psychopathic parasites, 4% of the population, who are clothed in your clothing and waving your flags, but who are only in it for narcissistic benefit?
I don't know, man. How do you identify them? Tim can.
In a recent appearance on the Joe Rogan podcast, Jordan Peterson lamented the expansion, the growth, and access of psychopaths on the right. These dark triad individuals, they're not real. They're lying to steal power.
Like, you can already tell. Like, it's like Tim comes out and says, all of this is going to be bullshit. When he just plays it up and hams it up that much. Oh my God, what the framing is unreal. Now, mind you, I understand. I'm framing a lot of shit too. Right? I get it. But, like, I'm just saying, that's how I know. Tim is somehow personally invested in this. Whenever Tim is personally invested in something, the last video I did about Tim was that Tim was so personally invested in something that he was missing the actual fucking point. He was missing the actual argument. And here he goes yet again.
And he was talking about Candace Owens. I tweeted at him, who are you talking about? Because he mentions more than one individual. Now, we know he's talking about Candace Owens because he referenced her on X. I've got the tweet where he called her a Pharisee. And in this clip, he says much the same.
So Tim has done Tim sleuthing, where Tim has said, hey, Jordan, who are you talking about? And Jordan did not answer him. Because if he would have answered him, he would have said, and Jordan told me, Candace Owens. But Jordan apparently did not answer him, so Tim is just putting one and one together. And I'll admit, without all of the drama that Tim has injected into it, I think, yeah, probably he's talking about Candace. Sure. I imagine he's also probably talking about, like, Andrew Tate. There's a lot of people who throw around God, and it's kind of like, yeah, Kanye West, who was a Jesus freak all the way up until he prayed to God to give him $1 billion and God didn't do it, so then he made a porn site and put his wife on it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, these type of people that throw around God a whole lot until God doesn't really serve their purposes as well anymore, and then... But, nevertheless, here we go.
He's now pushing this study, which... I believe, well, as many people are pointing out, has partnered with the Anti-Defamation League of all organizations.
Now, see, Tim uses this to pile on the discrediting of this whole report. Fuck the whole report, right? There's going to be a lot of flat earther talk in this video, right? So Tim is now piling on. He's beginning to stack bricks, right? And Anti-Defamation League. Well, I mean, look, if you are a doctor or a scientist and you would like to do a study, and that study happens to involve some sort of degree of anti-Semitism or racism or something like that, I do know one organization that if you petition them for funding, most likely you're going to get it. And it's the Anti-Defamation League. And they love to do all sorts of anti-Semitism stuff, unless, of course, the anti-Semitism gets in the way of Islamophobia or something like that, and then fuck the Jews. But, like, whenever it's, we're looking into this thing that's anti-Christian in some way and anti-Jewish in another and whatever and all else, this, that. We're down for it. How much you want? You want $1 billion? Sure, here you go. So, I mean, like, sure, it looks bad, but at the same time, if you want to do a study and you need the money, call the people with money.
The study that claims people pushing the phrase Christ is king are actually anti-Semites. Okay, that's a whole weird aside, which we can't talk about.
Like, because I've dealt with this recently, too. The guy who told me that I was wrong because he said so. No, he was the one that was Tim on Netanyahu's payroll. That guy. Yeah, and I said, you're not going to like my channel. And he said, why? And I said, because I support Israel. And then he throws down the Schofield heresy. And I'm like, dude. Like, and so there you go. Like, that's one of these people that's throwing out religion in a way that's fucked up. Right? And You know, if Christ is king somehow punctuates an argument, you're not really using it in an appropriate way. If Christ is king is somehow used in a way to one-up somebody in an argument or just end an argument and be like, whatever, Christ is king. Like, if you're using it in an argument in any way, that's not good. You know what I mean? Like, unless the argument is Christ is not king. Oh no, Christ is king. Like that, okay, there you go. But like, it is a fucking thing. Like, let's not pretend like it's not a thing. There is nothing new under the sun. Whatever.
But it's interesting to see this split. And what I see from Jordan Peterson, who I like Jordan Peterson. But I see this appeal to authority, which I largely do not agree with.
This is where the flat earther part of the conversation begins, right? Because Tim begins to go a route that leads to flat earth, right? Flat earthers believe that the earth is flat, it can't possibly be round. They know this because of faulty mathematics and faulty tests that have proven to them that the earth is flat and it is not round. However, they are fucking wrong. The people who tell them that they are wrong all the time and say, if you would only read some of our material, you know, like all of the astrophysics stuff that we publish, maybe you would learn that you're wrong. And they say, well, everything that you publish is lies. That's how they get around the whole NASA thing. Like, everything that NASA publishes is lies, right? So Tim is about to begin the whole, well, everything that has a study involved with it is lies. Because, a bunch of experts say this, so that's lies.
There have been numerous instances where organizations have come together and tried to assert a fact study, which proves in our report. And that is not a convincing argument.
And that's extremely true. And I hate the people that do that shit. All the people with the whole transgender shit that came out with all these studies, all these people that come out with all these studies for fucking climate change and all this stuff and all these studies, and we get all these studies and COVID studies and all this studies and this studies and domestic terrorism studies and like we get all these bad studies that are all done by flat earthers. They start with bad math, and then everything that refutes their claim, they go, that's all lies, and then they try to push bullshit, and everybody goes, and some people go, well, this study said, and everybody else goes, fuck the studies, I don't care about studies. And that's what's so dangerous about all of these shitty studies that the leftists put out, because they fucking muddy the waters to where nobody wants to believe any studies. And because Tim is personally invested against studies, I can't wait till we get to that shit, man. Oof.
But let's do this. Let me play the clip from the Joe Rogan podcast. He also appeared on Fox News arguing much the same, and then we'll break down who he's talking about and what he's talking about. Here you go.
I think that virtualization has enabled the psychopaths.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, well,
without a doubt.
That's a terrible thing because the psychopathic types, they're always the death of everything. Like I'm seeing this come up on the right now. So imagine this. I've been working on a new theory of political psychopathology, and I like it quite a lot.
Is this where the term the woke right comes in?
Yeah, well, Lindsay is pointing at that, but he hasn't got the diagnosis exactly right. So it isn't woke. That's not the issue. It's not exactly.
I think
he's one
what
level.
they're talking about is like similar types of behavior.
He is talking.
Flat earthers. I did this study with bad math. I'm right because my math checks out. Everything you say is based on bad math that's people lying to you. Because everything they say is lies. That's what we're talking about.
Talking about that. Yeah, no, what he's pointing.
Woke just lets you clarify in your head, oh, it's like that.
Yeah, but the problem is.
It's like Antifa.
Yeah, absolutely.
Flat earthers.
But the problem is that argument is predicated on the claim that the ideas are the problem, like the woke ideas, for example, on the right or the left. But that's not the problem. The problem is that 4 to 5% of the population, something like that, is cluster B, that's the DSM-5 terms, histrionic, narcissistic, antisocial, psychopathic, or they have dark tetrad traits. They're Machiavellian.
Oh,
they're
I'm sorry, dark tetrad. I said triad. I was wrong.
Now, I'll say this. Tim is honest to a fault, because he tries to be honest whenever he genuinely does screw something up, but then other times when he just, and he'll be so honest that when he goes to lie about things later on, it's like, oh, this video is so perfect. You guys really got to watch to the end of this one. It gets so much better as it goes on.
That's about 4%. Okay, so the question is, how do these people maneuver? And the answer is they go to where the power is, and they adopt those ideas, and they put themselves even on the forefront of that. Right. But the ideas are completely irrelevant.
Right.
All they're doing is they're the Pharisees. They're the modern version of the Pharisees. They're the people who use God's name in vain, right?
Okay, let's pause real quick, because that's him basically saying Candace Owens, okay?
I mean, fair enough, Tim, but Jesus Christ. Like, just...
So I've got the tweet from, let me see if I can pull it up here. Right, here you go. Jordan Peterson tweeted, Candace Owens is a true pharisaical pretender. She vociferously proclaims her devotion to Christ for no other reason than to evaluate a perceived status. Her outrage is designed not to shout the truth from the rooftops, build bridges or make peace, but to subvert Christianity itself with its new force to her own purposes. She is literally using God's name in vain. There are few more unforgivable sins.
Now look, again, if you're using God to punctuate an argument, or as an argument, or in an argument, really, you know what I mean? And if you're somehow weaponizing the belief in an unrealistic way, which is pretty obviously unrealistic, I think, you know, you're kind of doing that. So Jordan is, you know, maybe not entirely spot on correct in the full assessment of it all. I don't know. I haven't done a psychological profile on Candace. I don't think anybody does. But I think it would be interesting if somebody did. But, like, I mean, look. She does that shit, man. She does. I've seen her do it. I've seen the fucking tweets. She does that shit. She throws out Christ is King as like a punctuation and an I gotcha moment. And it is fucked up.
Jordan Peterson says, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites. You are like whitewashed tombs, which appear beautiful on the outside, but inside are full of dead men's bones and every kind of filth. Whoa! Yo. Okay.
Yeah, quoting Jesus. That's what Jesus said in many of his little arguments with the Pharisees. Jesus was, you know, he didn't like them.
This is some kind of like inter-factional beef. When Jordan Peterson mentions the cluster B, dark tetrad individuals, they go to where power is. That's the corporate press right now. That's what all of that was. The reason why they're marching in lockstep, the reason they're lying is because they're not there to seek truth. They're there to seek power and influence. I worked for some of these organizations.
And you learned a lot from them, Tim. And I mean, I can't argue entirely with Tim here, but Tim's kind of setting up this because it's them, it certainly isn't us type of a thing. And no, because it's them, of course it's some of us. Right? Like, it only makes sense that you're going to get bad people whenever you start doing something that involves power and influence. Right? So, like, yeah. But no, it's not because of them. No, we're all good. No, that's... The
reason people get jobs there is because they want the platform to get followers. They want to be famous. They don't... They tell you things like, I always wanted to be a muckraker like Nellie Bly. I wanted to be like her. You're like, oh, so you're looking for vanity and attention. Okay, that's a bit unfair. If you want to emulate good behaviors, that's fine. But typically for a lot of these people, they're not saying they wanted to do the good work. They're saying they wanted that position and reverence that came with it.
And that's why I say, somebody like you does what you do. It's not so much that you want to be Ted Koppel. You want to be Tim Pool. You want to change culture. You want to make, skate houses and whatever. I mean, power and influence is something people go for, and a lot of people go for it for a lot of different reasons. But man, you sure talk about yourself a lot these days.
Is they proclaim moral virtue.
Yes.
Doesn't matter whether it's right or left or Christian or Jewish or Islam. They invade the idea space, and then they use those ideas as false weapons to advance their narcissistic advantage.
Yes.
And so then you have the problem, and the right's going to face this more and more, particularly because the left had to face it when they were in power.
Yes.
How do you identify the psychopathic parasites, 4% of the population, who are clothed in your clothing and waving your flags, but who are...
Yo, did Homie just call Candace Owens a psychopathic parasite?
I mean, not specifically, but yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to just make all those connections, sure, but like... We'll get into it. Oh my gosh.
Come on. Look, I tweeted after this clip saying, at Dr. Peterson, like, who are you referring to? He called Candace Owens a Pharisee, a pharisaical pretender in the Lord names in vain. He then does this segment, this bit. They've got this document he put out. Yo, he's literally calling her a psychopathic parasite.
Who are only in it for narcissistic benefit.
I mean, yes, but Tim is really dramatizing it up greatly. Like, Jordan, first of all, I don't know if Tim he doesn't really come off in this video like he understands this is a thing, but Jordan has been talking about this shit for fucking years now. Long time. Jordan has been talking about people who are narcissistic and they don't fucking care and all this kind of stuff, and he's been talking about anonymity on the internet for years, almost a decade now. He's been talking about this. And his point is, so long as you have anonymity on the internet, people will say whatever the fuck they want to, no matter how enraging or awful it is. And it not only is going to happen, but the algorithms encourage it, because those sorts of statements are the ones that get the most interaction. And because of Anita Sarkeesian, everything is now just interaction based. It has nothing to do with whether or not something is good or bad. We can't have a downvote button that in some way punishes you. Everything just has to be interaction, so that the algorithm will just push everything that's getting interaction, no matter how good or bad that interaction is. And the bad things get the most interaction. So because of anonymity, like, let me put it to you like this. Think about half of the fucking shit you've said online to or at people. Would you say any of that shit to their face? If the answer is even no in one instance, then you have to acknowledge that the only reason you said it online is because that person isn't going to come track you down and punch you in the fucking nose for it. And you know it because you know they don't know who you are.
So that's his play, but he does have another clip that I think we have this. Jack Posobiec points this out. He says,
like, I don't entirely like Jack Posobiec. Like, when it comes down to it, really, I don't really like a whole lot of anybody, even in the right anymore. Like, Ben and Michael Knowles, Ben Shapiro, Michael Knowles, Matt, whatever the fuck his name is, Matt, whatever, Tim, fucking, like, dude, Tucker even these days is starting to annoy the shit out of me. Cause it's like they're all chasing that dragon, man. They're all trying to just get one up. You know, what did I say in the last video? Oh, that was pretty crazy. Yeah, that got a lot of interaction. Let's see if we can one up that shit tonight. Like, everybody's looking for their controversy, and everybody's looking to talk about everybody's controversy, and it's an Ouroboros, man. It is a snake eating its own tail throughout infinity. And these are the lessons that we learned in 2016, 2017. Start fighting with each other. Remember when the YouTube wars happened and everybody was fighting with each other, and I was fighting with Joy, and Joy was fighting with Esion, and Esion was fighting with everybody, and everybody was fighting with Riley. And like, do you remember all that shit? Bering's fighting with Christy Winters, and dude, all the crazy stuff. And everybody just waited around for somebody to make a video where they were just talking too loose, and then, oh, I can really hammer on them for this shit. Like, dude, this is it's and everybody's just so arrogant and shitty. Like, Ben Shapiro is just arrogant and shitty, and Michael Knowles is just kind of arrogant and superior and shitty, and like, everybody's just got this arrogance, and it's confident in their rightness, and that's whatever, but it gets exhausting after so long, man. It gets fucking exhausting. And I'm Charlie Kirk, I'm exhausted with all of them. Fucking, what's his name, the dude in Canada that beat his wife, whatever the fuck all that nonsense was. Dude, all of them, just, they drive me fucking nuts. And I do it too, but I try not to.
Jordan Peterson appears on Hannity and promotes his report linking Christ as King to political extremism. He then criticizes internet anonymity as a cause of extremism. Hannity does not push back.
And again, he's been talking about this for years, and I've been listening to him talk about this for years. And in a lot of ways, I agree with him. And another thing that I agree with him is, well, what do you do? Because if you make everybody post their actual name and fucking phone number as their screen name, then nobody's going to say shit about nothing. So either it all happens because it's anonymous and we just deal with the good and the bad, or none of it fucking happens because then nobody's going to say shit to anybody because I don't need that kind of smoke.
Distinction between the political and the psychological, and not to collapse them together. So imagine this. Imagine that there's a group of individuals, about 4% of the population, who have a set of personality characteristics that have been described as dark tetrad. So they're Machiavellian, they use their language to manipulate, they're narcissistic, they want unearned social status and reputation, they're psychopathic, which makes them free of empathy, and parasitical and predatory.
And a lot of that psychopathicness, the free of empathy, comes from, well, I also don't know this person. Like, I'm anonymous, so I know they're not going to come after me, but they're also anonymous. For the most part, that's most interactions. And so, well, you know, I don't really give a shit about them. You know, it's not so much that he's saying that all of those people, everybody involved, they're all just psychopaths. Some of them have less empathy than others, that's for fucking sure. Bordering on, if not fully right into, psychopathy. But, like, for the most part, the anonymity of the internet, both of ours and of other people, does encourage us to not give a shit. Because I don't know who you are. Why the fuck do I care? You know, like, I'm not even going to see how bad your day might go because of what I do here. So what do I care?
And they're sadistic. So they take positive delight in the unnecessary suffering of others.
And also, that is another aspect of it too, because sometimes you do get informed about how horrible somebody's day has gone because of all of this, that, or the other thing. Or you look at situations like, what was her name? August Ames, right? She posts something online, and because she doesn't have the gift of anonymity, all of the anonymous people piled on her to the point where she said, fuck it, and then killed herself the next day. You know, like, I mean, there is a lot of sadism that goes along in it too, especially when you're talking about somebody that you can fuck with to the point where it will affect them visibly in some way that you'll see. And I deal with that a lot.
Now, those people also use false cries of victimization, let's say, to manipulate, and they're entitled.
That does happen a lot too. A whole lot. On all sides. Everybody now has gotten into the, I just don't want to lose. And man, he's nailing it.
They seek vengeance when it's unwarranted, and they protest loudly and make very public cries for reparations that would be self-serving. Okay, now the way those people operate is they look for what patterns of belief form groups that they can infiltrate and then capitalize on. And that happens on the right. We did a report, the same group, on the use of Christ as king as a manipulative strategy by bad actors, hypothetically on the right. And
it is. It is being used a lot, especially because of the whole Israel thing. There is a sect of Christianity that believes that the Jews are scum and we ought to kill all Jews. Fuck the Jews. Like, there's a big fuck the Jews segment of Christianity. Right? I mean, like, look at the Klan. They was burning crosses. There was a large Christianity angle in that too. A lot of people throughout all of history have used the bludgeon of Christianity to push their hatred of others. It's happening. It's still happening now.
This report identified the same sort of people on the left, but it's not primarily political.
Okay, I got to pause there. This is the problem I'm having with this. Candace Owens has, as far as I know, never used the phrase Christ is king to insult somebody, to troll somebody.
But she does use it in cases wherein she is arguing with people, and it's ultimately this is my last statement on it, Christ is king. Like, it's she does do that shit.
We had talked about this on Timcast IRL because she had used it in reference to, I think, Bridget Macron being accused of being a man.
So there you go. Like, man. Well, I mean, you know, she did use it in this one case for this one thing where she was arguing with somebody about something. Like, there's also a degree of perception involved in it too, right? If you're using it, you have to be using it in a way wherein it is appropriate. If you're using it in a way to just end a conversation or an argument or as a point, again, all of this shit all over again. But also, if you get into a Christ is King thread and then pick a fight with somebody and then ultimately end it out with, well, Christ is King. Like, dude, it's the appropriate place and the appropriate time. Like, there has to be the vision of appropriateness. And if people are going to misunderstand it, then we're also going to get in other weird situations too.
And some people said, why do hashtag Christ is King in that post? And it was because it was part of a larger thread having to do with the argument of some sort. Like,
and yet people are still asking the fucking question. So there you go. If it's being misinterpreted, it's not used in the best fucking way.
It wasn't just that she said, Bridget Macron is a man, Christ is king. And people were like, why would you do that? It was actually part of a longer thread.
And yet still it's there. So did she get into a Christ is King thread and pick a fight with some lady about how she's man? Like, we're missing a lot of context here. This is not really great reporting.
Say what you want about Candace Owens. The thing that I find absurd about that argument immediately was, I'm like, even if you think Candace Owens is a psychopath who's pretending, she is nowhere near stupid enough to walk into something as dumb as that. Okay?
Yes, she is. Of course she is. She does. Every time she's in the fucking news, it's because of some dumb thing that she's walked into.
More importantly, I don't think she's trolling anybody. I think Candace genuinely is saying Christ is king.
And there's other people that disagree. Hence the study. We should maybe study this.
Certainly, you can argue that Candace is of a certain personality type, which drives towards success. And the people who don't like her political views will argue that drive is psychopathic or sociopathic. However, the people who agree with everything she's saying is going to point out that she's a hardworking, passionate individual.
No shit, Tim. The people that don't like her are going to shit on her. And the people that do like her are going to prop her up. It's brilliant.
So I don't know. I have no, what is gained by using this line of attack against individuals?
I don't know, man. What is gained by just saying, well, it's a report made by experts, so I don't give a shit? Like, what's gained by that? Did you read the report? Maybe the report has something interesting in it. It's not like you're really fighting a report. I don't think you read the report. Did you read the report? That's kind of why they make the reports. They do these studies and make these reports so that people will read the report and then decide what they think. Did you read the report? I don't think you read the report.
And I'll tell you why I don't like it. Because they have tried to do this to individuals like me and others.
Here we go. We're off and running. From this point on, it's all about Tim.
This is 7 years ago. 6.5 years ago, the Alternative Influence Network, this viral fake news study, which smeared me and other YouTubers as, again, manipulating, lying, conspiracy theories, partnering with white nationalists, fake news.
Yeah, a bunch of leftists made a whole bunch of reports that fucked everything up, Tim. And now you're exactly the proof of why that was bad. Because now you're a flat earther and you just don't believe any report written by any expert. Because, it's a report by an expert and I don't entirely agree with it. I don't even fucking know. I'm not even going to read it. It's just wrong. And you're stupid, if not gay, and nobody likes you.
And they're creating it so that media outlets like Fox News or otherwise will run the story and say, experts agree Candace Owens is a bad person. Why do it?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't really, I've seen people bring on Jordan Peterson to talk about things, and he hasn't mentioned Candace specifically. You're drawing that parallel. So he's not really doing that. You're kind of doing that, but whatever. He's not really. But you are. But I mean, kind of he is, because I'm sure he means her, because he is actually arguing with her online. But at the same time, he didn't go on Fox News to talk about her. He talked about the study. I imagine because he would like people to read the study and then decide for themselves if she fits.
Why do it? You're not convincing anybody. If your argument is that Candace Owens is a serpent Pharisee and she's tricking the masses, well, then she's certainly better at it than you.
I don't know if that's supposed to be an insult. Or if he just doesn't fucking understand what he just said there. I mean, if I were Jordan and I were to hear that, I'd be like, well, okay, so she's a better serpent Pharisee than me. That's good.
Let me put it this way. I wouldn't purport to know enough about the psychological tendencies of Candace Owens or otherwise to argue that she is or is not anything other than a successful personality in media for the past decade or whatever, who has built a show and a loyal following.
So in other words, going back to your previous statement, then that would put you in the camp of people that really like her and support her. All right, fair enough to know.
And what I can say is, well, I certainly don't agree with her on a lot of the things she's been talking about politically more recently.
Okay, so you don't agree with her with all of the Israel stuff. Okay.
I will say that going back like 3 years ago, I went on her show and she was spot on. And I agreed with most of what she was saying as it related to politics of the era.
But 3 years ago, you agreed with everything that she was talking about. All right.
With all due respect, I don't largely follow her show. She's made claims that I believe to be false, but.
So you don't really follow her show, but she's kind of a liar. All right.
I haven't. If you're going to criticize me as saying this. I don't actually watch Candace's show.
So you don't even watch the bitch. All right.
So if the people who are fans of Jordan Peterson like Tim, he's actually right about Candace. I'm like, okay, well, like I watch some of her show sometimes, but I don't really follow it all that much. I don't agree with her mostly on her political views.
So you watch a show sometime, but you don't entirely follow her, but you agree with her. So... Tim, make a decision, motherfucker.
But I will just say this. I take that back. We probably agree overwhelmingly on a lot of things.
Okay, so now you overwhelmingly agree on most. Okay.
We probably disagree on a decent amount.
But yet you probably disagree on a decent amount. Oh, all right. You know what? That's fucking clear as crystal, man. Clear as a muddied stream.
You will never convince anybody that psychopaths are taking over by using the institutional attack.
I don't entirely think he's saying that they're taking over. I think he says that they're becoming a lot more of them. Or that it's just becoming more apparent that this is kind of what it is. I don't really know, Tim, because also I have not really read the study, because I've more or less been hearing Jordan talk about this study for about 4 or 5 years now. Like every time he does an interview, he kind of soundboards this shit, but now apparently they've come out with the study. I'd actually be quite interested to read the study, because I've been listening to it for years now. I'd like to see the result, but like... you know what, honestly, at the end of the day, I changed my mind. Actually, no, fuck it. Because it's a whole bunch of experts, and all they're going to say is lies anyways, because that's the only thing that happens whenever you get a group of experts together. Lies.
That is what we largely had a problem with wokeness. For Jordan Peterson to team up with experts, come together, and then be like, we've determined that these people are using the Lord's name in vain and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like...
like... Well, how else is that shit gonna happen? Hey, I think I see something happening. Let's do a study. Alright, we've done the study. Let's release the study so that people can read it. Did you read it? Because it doesn't sound like you read it. You're not really arguing any of the points from the study. You're just kind of arguing what he said and just going, you're dumb. And nobody likes you.
I will determine for myself whether I believe that she is blaspheming or otherwise.
So then you did read the study? Are you about to tell us that you did read the study?
I know I'm not a Christian, but I'm saying I can read her tweets, dude.
So then you're not going to read the study. You're just going to read her tweets. Okay.
She says this in response to Peterson. This is indistinguishable from the time when the COVID experts produced baseless reports claiming that those who refused to get the vaccine or stay home were extremists who suffered from psychopathic tendencies. She's right.
She's wrong. Like, this is not the same thing. Those were the bullshit studies. Did she read the study? Is she arguing the points of the study? No, she's comparing it to ridiculous studies and going, so is that. Because that is against me, and I want you to think that's ridiculous, like that shit, because that was ridiculous, but now this shit was ridiculous too, because it's about me. And, as always, Christ is king. Punctuating the argument.
And I'm not saying that Peterson's arguments are all wrong about the dark tetrad and things like that. I'm saying...
Because you're not saying a fucking thing about it! You're not saying anything about it! Not a fucking thing! You're saying it's you and a bunch of experts. You're wrong.
When you produce these expert analyses, which call your political opponents extremist psychopaths, you convinced nobody. Nobody.
And you're gay, and nobody likes you.
And here's the problem. I lived in West Virginia. Okay, doctor told me not to get vaccinated, so I just followed my doctor's orders, and we went out and did whatever we wanted. I am not a psychopathic extremist. So when that report comes out, I'm like, that's fake.
Hey, every time I read a report and I think to myself, I bet you that there is an anomaly somewhere in the world. There is somebody with which this does not apply. The whole fucking report's bullshit. The whole fucking thing. I believe the earth is flat. The earth is flat!
Then when they do similar things, claiming that Candace Owens, or I have no idea who else he's referring to be completely honest, are Pharisees and parasites, I'm like, I instantly distrust you. Instantly.
I've heard that before. Every time a picture comes out of the Earth and it's from NASA, I know that it's a composite and I instantly don't believe it's real. The Earth is flat.
Because I have been a victim of these smear campaigns from the experts.
Right? So there is Tim's personal blinders. It is something that involves me directly. It is something that I have experienced bad things from. This is the only road that I can see.
On more than one occasion. For being a YouTuber who simply fact-checked the media. And at the time they accused me of this, I was supporting Democrats. It was insane.
And ultimately, that was the thing that led to your kind of half-assed red pilling. It's still the bitch in you that keeps you from ever actually taking a stance, but all of that shit was what pushed you to the right. Because it was bullshit studies. But did you know that this one is? Did you read it? Or because you don't think it's about you, obviously it's wrong. It's about Candace, and I like Candace because Candace has had me on her show, and Candace is wonderful, so you're wrong.
That's how maniacal these people were. So I'm not playing that game. I'm not playing this game.
No, you're playing the Flat Earther game. You're playing a game entirely on your own. Did you read the study, Tim?
If you want to argue with Candace Owens, you have to confront her to her ideas.
And if you want to argue with Jordan, you have to argue with his points. And he's not arguing fucking her points on whatever the fuck else. He's arguing the nature of people to do the thing that she's kind of doing. Tim, you're not even addressing his point.
Because even if she actually is the psychopath that Jordan Peterson thinks she is, she has arguments behind her that some would argue are better than yours.
Again, with the better than yours, his argument is she's using this in a fucked up way. So therefore, she's kind of a fucked up person. And she's got some fucked up points, which Tim has admitted and then took back and then admitted again and then took back and then said again. But nevertheless, right? So...
Accusing someone of being a psycho doesn't change their political position, nor does it counter the argument they made.
But did you read the report? Or is it just not even worth reading because, well, it's experts and you said something that I don't like and you phrased it in a way that I find is disgusting, so I'm just not even going to read it.
So Candace Owens comes out and says the bombing of children in Gaza is wrong. And the response being, yeah, well, you're a psychopath. I go,
I don't think that that's in any way what's being said here, Tim. What are you doing?
Well, I'm kind of interested in what Candace has to say about that. I mean, she's made a point. I'm interested in hearing more details. You just kind of insulted her and called her crazy.
That's your take on it. Like, he's a clinical fucking psychologist. Like, what he's gonna use psychology terminology, Tim. Oh, what a bitch.
You never actually challenged her idea. It was supposed to be the marketplace of ideas won. I feel that what Jordan Peterson is engaging in right now is not that.
But how the fuck do you know, Tim? Did you read the report?
So by all means, I would say this. Jordan Peterson engaging with Candace's statements directly. When she says Christ is king, say, I don't believe you're genuine. But that's still just an opinion statement.
Yeah, that's why he made a whole report.
If she says, I have a position on Israel and Palestine, argue against it and say, here's why I think you're wrong.
That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about the usage of Christ as king.
This is the fascinating thing about why I find myself on the right or whatever. I can criticize Elon Musk. He still follows me and retweets me.
Oh, yeah. Tim, the name dropper.
I criticize him quite a bit.
I shit on Elon all the time.
I'm a big fan, by the way, though.
But I love that man.
You know, so it's fascinating that you get people saying, why don't you criticize Elon? Well, I largely like what he does. I mean, space travel, Neuralink for healing paraplegics, these things are very, very good. Restoring free speech to a great degree on X, very good. Neuralink as a invasive AI integration tool is terrifying. X as an expansion of Grok and AI will be destructive to humans, so a little bit more negative on this. And he's got a bunch of kids, and I think kids should have dads. So I'm very critical of Elon having as many kids and operating the way he is.
So he does some really good things. And he does some really bad things. Okay.
However, I think he's a net benefit overall. His personal moral failings are nothing compared to his scientific research expansion, and there's good things there.
I agree. What the man does in his personal time is kind of on him, and what he does professionally is kind of on the rest of the world for Elon Musk.
I can criticize Elon. He still retweets me.
He still loves me. He'll still retweet things that I say. When Elon agrees with me, he'll retweet me. You'll see. You'll see. I'll make it happen again.
I can criticize Charlie Kirk on the TikTok thing, as I have.
Fuck Charlie Kirk too. Fuck that asshole. He's got shit wrong.
I got to be honest. I actually agree with Charlie Kirk on most things. So fuck,
you know what? Actually, no. Charlie Kirk is always right.
Relatively little to criticize him on. But the TikTok thing I did. Charlie ain't mad. He just says, well, we'll talk about it. He'll sit down with Bill Maher. How is that the case? I know that if I said, I've got an issue with Candace Owens' position on insert issue, she'd say, what's your problem? And then I'd say, here's my issue. She's like, well, I think you're wrong. And I'd be like, okay. And that would be the end of it.
Yeah. I'd say, I think I got a problem with what you're saying. And she'd say, you're wrong, you're kind of gay, and nobody likes you. And that'd be the end of it.
We would argue on X. And then that would be the end of it.
We'd argue, and then we'd move on to the next bit. Ship, that's the way the show goes.
There's no... This is the problem with woke. This is the reason why I can't stand the liberal left, because they say, agree with me or else. Now, the right does that sometimes, but it's not a tendency. The left does it all the time.
Too fucking true. So usually that would generally lead me to think that when somebody on the right does something, I at least read the fucking report.
Ultimately, my point is this. I'm a fan of Jordan Peterson and his work for the most part. I am. Candace Owens, actually, she has a really good show.
That he never watches. We already established he doesn't watch it.
Haven't listened to it predominantly in more recent times. I know she's been heavily criticized for her position on Jews.
So there is problems going on with Candace with Jews, and she's a big Christian, so you think maybe there might be some time when she might have been shitty in an un-Christ-like way? Like, I don't know. Nah, probably not. I don't know. I mean, if I were to find out if that were true, I would probably have to do a study.
I've been more critical of, I think she called Lyndon B. Johnson Jewish, and I believe he was a Protestant. So, you know.
See, sometimes she just talks right out of her ass, but, for the most part, she's a great girl. She does a whole lot of things. She does a really great show that I never watch.
But I'm not here to assert my position that she's a crazy person for having said the things that she says. In fact,
you're actually saying quite the opposite. She's a brilliant, wonderful lady that you never watch.
She's critical of the moon landing story.
Which makes her a fucking moron.
And I said, well, to be honest, the media lies to us all the time. And it's not in the realm of fiction to argue that the U.S. would have staged the moon landing. Personally, I think the moon landing happened.
So you couldn't even take a fucking real position before with her about the fucking moon landing? You couldn't have looked at her and said, oh, well, that means you're retarded. Sorry.
I'm not going to insult Candace because she says a thing I don't believe.
Well, fair enough, Tim. That's why you got me. I will. You're fucking retarded.
That's silly. And it doesn't move the conversation forward.
No, it doesn't. Because we're rehashing old bullshit that has been established and is now fucking academic. You're retarded. Stop being that.
Anyway, look, drama, I guess. I shouldn't rant on this any longer. You get the point.
Honestly, Tim, you've gone so many fucking different directions that honestly, I don't even know what the fuck your point is. I know that your point is that Candace is wonderful and you absolutely love her and you really like to have her on your show. But, dude, beyond that, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
You know what? I got that's it, I suppose. Let me know what you guys think.
I think you're stupid, Tim.